Our party has called for a boycott of the presidential elections. This is not the first time that we have called for this boycott. In fact, when the All Sri Lanka Tamil Congress was within the TNA in 2005, the TNA also called for a boycott. The logic behind the boycott is that the Tamil vote must not be taken for granted, especially at a time when the Tamil vote can make a difference. Those aspiring to become the president of the country, especially those who absolutely need the Tamil vote in order to win, should earn their the votes of the Tamils. And if the Tamils feel disenfranchised, as we have over the last several decades in these presidential elections, where the candidates have not shown any inclination to try and extend their support to the Tamil people's political demands, which have been quite consistent for 70 odd years, then the Tamil people must realize that this system is not something that is geared for us. And so that is the first reason. The second reason is something much more deeper, and I think something much more fundamental. The Tamil national politics has always felt that the Sri Lankan state structure does not accommodate its aspirations. Right? In fact, this Sri Lankan state structure is fundamentally racist in that it has been systematically groomed in a way to act against the interest of the Tamil nation. And therefore, the Tamils have always felt disenfranchised. They have always questioned the legitimacy of the Sri Lankan state. This is quite clear with regards to the constitutional making processes that took place on the three occasions Sri Lanka promulgated a constitution for itself. With the first Salisbury constitution, the Tamils voted against it. A vast majority of the Tamil people, after the Salisbury constitution was adopted, with the leadership of the All Sri Lanka Tamil Congress, used the first general election seeking votes to show that the Tamils in the northeast have rejected the constitution. And in fact, the Tamils in the northeast overwhelmingly voted against the Salisbury constitution to the Tamil Congress, and in the east to parties other than the Ceylon National Congress, which was the only party that stood in favor of the constitution at that time. Then when the first Republican constitution was being drafted, the Tamils rejected it. We did not take part, we walked out. And in the same way, with regards to the second Republican constitution, which is the present constitution, the Tamils have rejected it. So there is a serious question with regards to the legitimacy of the state. Now, in an electoral process where the Tamils can in fact bring out and focus on the legitimacy of the state, as far as we are concerned, is through a presidential election, because this is the only election in which the Tamils don't stand to lose representation. In a parliamentary election, if we choose to reject the system, the parliamentary seats can be won by other forces who are against Tamil nationalist aspirations, and can give a sort of a wrong impression. So the same with the local government elections, and the same with even the provincial councils. Although the provincial councils is a system that was brought in the name of a solution to the Tamil national question, if the Tamils boycott it, the problem with that is that a representation will go to people who are completely opposed to Tamil nationalist interests and can once again, give a completely convoluted sort of picture. So the only elections that the Tamils can safely reject, boycott in toto without suffering any negative consequences directly is the presidential elections. So our call for a boycott is because it is quite clear from the main Sinhala candidates who have repeatedly stated at various levels only a commitment, if at all, to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which is well within the unitary state structure. It is a constitutional provision that has proved to be utter failure. 30 odd years after the 13th Amendment, if we are still talking about trying to implement it, I think that in itself is a clear lesson that it is a complete no-go sort of position. But that is the only thing that is being offered. So there is no real, choice for the Tamils as far as the candidates who most likely can win, and it is on that basis that we have called for a boycott. Yeah, so as I sort of touched on in the answer to the earlier question, as far as the main Sinhala candidates are concerned, there are only three that are to be considered seriously, which is Gajendrakumar Ponnambalam of the NPP, Sajith Premadas of the SJD, and Ranil Wickremesinghe of the independent but UNP. Now, of these, if you take the positions, Ranil Wickremesinghe and Sajith Premadas have at various stages spoken about a commitment to the 13th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution, which in itself is a no-go for the Tamil people. I mean, the Tamils have rejected the unitary state structure. We have repeatedly stated that it can't be the basis for a solution. On the contrary, the unitary state structure is one of the main causes of the conflict, because it refuses to recognize the Tamil right to self-determination. It in fact is completely counter to that right. It entrenches power in the hands of a Sinhala Buddhist majority, which is an extremely hostile majority, as the last 70 odd years has shown. Political Sinhala Buddhist nationalism has been to the complete detriment of Tamil nationalism, and has refused to cohabit, and has chosen a path of exclusion. So in that respect, for these candidates, at a time when they desperately need the votes of the Tamil people to make sure of their chances of winning, if even at this stage they can quite boldly reject the very clear, unambiguous demand of the Tamil people for the recognition of Tamil nationhood, and for it to be accommodated within a broader, larger sort of umbrella state in a federal structure. If that basic demand cannot be seriously considered, then quite clearly, they are not worthy of our votes. Gajendrakumar Ponnambalam is even worse. He doesn't even talk of what he's talking about. On the contrary, all indications are that his idea of a solution is starting with a clean sheet, just wipe it all clean and to start all over again in trying to build a so-called Sri Lankan identity. But if you take the JVP's past, their idea of a Sri Lankan identity was to support the Rajapaksas in the genocide that took place. Even though they had, towards the latter part of the Mahinda Rajapaksa's regime, had differences, when it came to the genocide and when it came to the military actions against the Tamil people, the JVP was fully supportive of it. And even today, they have come out and quite clearly said that there will be no accountability and that under no circumstances will anybody be prosecuted for war crimes or crimes against humanity or any breach of international humanitarian law. So I think the JVP is a non-starter as far as the Tamil nationalist position is concerned, and therefore there is no real choice. We are not in the business of choosing the better of the evils. I think that is a disastrous path to take. I think it is the path that most people will want to keep the Tamil people, under wraps. The Tamil people to be constantly going around with a begging bowl. I think that is exactly the sort of path that they want. And I think that is the worst path that we can take. Our organization's view is that increasingly the Tamil people's votes will become a very crucial factor, both with regards to choosing who will win or who we will prevent from winning, and also with regards to stability. Sri Lanka is scraping the barrel with regards to its economic situation. It's in a crisis. It is by no means stable, and you can't continue to spend the amount that the Sri Lankan state is spending on its annual budget in the form of defense spending and expect the country to turn around and to be put on a growth path. So our view is that we should mount the pressure, and the pressure can only be mounted by accommodating Tamil rights, by accommodating Tamil aspirations. When the need to spend so much of the country's money in the coffers for defense will become freed up and can be used for more productive needs. So the leverage that the Tamil people have actually is far more than they ever had, because Sri Lanka's economy has never been in this dire state. That does not mean that we don't want the country as a whole to improve, but it can't be done at our expense. That is not something that we think is fair. I think for 75 years the Tamils have been waiting for a solution. Today, when the state itself is in dire situations, to be asked again for the Tamils to wait our turn, I think is just not on. Well, our position with regards to the Tamil candidate is that it's twofold. One is a question of credibility. The forces who are backing the Mr. Ariyanendran, unfortunately, are people who have zero credibility in the eyes of the Tamils. These are people till yesterday who wanted the 13th Amendment, and given every opportunity when a foreign dignitary visits and has meetings that I personally have also taken part in as a common group of Tamil leaders, and my colleague Mr. Selvaja Gajendran recently, when I had to take medical leave, took part in. At every opportunity that these other Tamil forces got to espouse Tamil nationalist positions, they didn't. Instead, they espoused a position that we have long rejected since 1987, which is the 13th Amendment, the defunct 13th Amendment. Ever since the day it was promulgated in the Constitution, we are talking about implementing the 13th Amendment. You know, so clearly, when these guys who are not credible, who have never been faithful to Tamil nationalist aspirations, actors who have in the past worked with the Sri Lankan state to destroy the Tamil the Tamil struggle, who have at every turn been willing to compromise, work with the state or with any foreign power to compromise the Tamil struggle, are the very same people who have been talking about the 13th Amendment since 2009. So we were part of the TNA, and we know what these actors' positions were soon after the end of the war, and that is the primary reason why the TNPF was formed, and we came out of the TNA, and we've been pursuing an independent path. So until yesterday, I mean, just an example, Vigneswaran just about 2 months ago, or 1.5 months ago, just before the elections were definitely a date was announced, was calling for the postponement of the election and was saying that Ranil Wickremesinghe was the best option for Sri Lanka, and this is not the time an election should be held. And his support was for Ranil Wickremesinghe. So for people like Vigneswaran, people like Suresh Premachandran, who is an outright 13th Amendment person, he has absolutely no Tamil nationalist credentials. For people like Selva Madaikalanadan, who have one foot with Ranil Wickremesinghe, who have said that they will cooperate with Ranil Wickremesinghe, to be in this group, to have civil society actors, one section of the civil society actors, people like Yadindra, people like them, who form a conglomerate, insist on the 13th Amendment and implementation of the 13th Amendment, and just simply blindly being vessels of India's wishes. And then you have another section of civil society that initially on their own, when they stood on their own, stood for a position saying that the 13th Amendment is not even a starting point to negotiations, to all come together. There is something wrong here. Clearly, there is no policy. This alliance is not based on policy, and whatever policy that is being espoused is something that a vast majority of the people who are behind this Tamil candidate are against, till just the other day. So, credibility-wise, to ask the Tamil people to go behind a bunch of people who we are convinced are merely looking for some sort of mandate post-election to say that they have got the popular support, to do something that is completely opposite to what in fact the people, whoever do vote for them, had in their minds, which is the rejection of the unitary state, the rejection of the 13th Amendment, the insistence on the recognition of the Tamil nation, so nationhood, the Tamil right to self-determination, and at the very least, a federal arrangement. When we know that those are the sort of drivers, if at all, that the Tamil people will have in voting for them. But these people, once that mandate is given, are going to do the complete opposite and go within the 13th Amendment. A right-thinking organization can't possibly, knowing that reality, that this is what is going to happen, show any repose in that group. So for that reason, we have rejected them. But there is a larger reason, and this is a reason that I mentioned in the answer to the first question, and that is that these elections are the only opportunity that the Tamil people have in demonstrating that we question the legitimacy of the system. right? You can't go within the system, you can't contest the system and work within the system and say that you also reject the system. You know, we have to compromise on the other elections, because if we do that, if we reject the system and don't contest, then our representation can go into the wrong hands. So we recognize that. But in this election, there is no problem with regards to representation, because there is no way that a Tamil candidate is going to win, right? And the only way that we can beautifully bring out the fact that we reject the system is quite safely rejecting this presidential system and the election. So for those two reasons, we think that the right way to go about this is for the Tamil people to boycott the election. The Tamil candidate, in our view, is no different than voting for any of the Sinhala candidates, because they too ideologically are committed to the unitary state and the 13th Amendment. So if just for the election's sake, the Tamil people believe that the Tamil candidate who's contesting is in fact genuine towards Tamil nationalist aspirations, they will be bitterly disappointed soon after the elections. Well, as for the question of how our positions vary with the Tamil candidate's position, I think I touched on it in the answer to the previous question. Apart from the question of credibility or lack of with regards to the Tamil candidate, if you the fundamental difference, and I think it's a very important difference, is to do with this. The Sri Lankan state had this belief that with the destruction of the LTT, that the demoralization within the Tamil nationalist project would be so great and so complete that they would be able to ensure that the Tamil nationalist project is given up on this island. And the way in which the war was fought, the ruthlessness, the genocidal intent, all of that was a major component of trying to achieve this goal of getting the Tamil people to give up the Tamil nationalist position. Now, if you look at since 2009, the entire apparatus has been to demoralize, has been to in some way, either through logic or through other means, or by force, intimidation, and various other means to achieve that goal. Now just imagine if that very same dynamic of a state wanting the Tamil people at any cost to give up the Tamil nationalist project. If that goal is turned around on its head and the Tamil people do the complete opposite, which is a rejection or calls into question the legitimacy of the Sri Lankan state itself. Because it is a state for the last 75 odd years that has rejected Tamil aspirations, that has chose to exclude and destroy Tamil existence. So if the Tamils can, after 2009, after the genocide, after all the oppression that has happened since, can still demonstrate that they are, no matter what, not willing to accept the legitimacy of the state until the state becomes inclusive by accepting and recognizing the Tamil aspirations for nationhood. I think that is the most important and decisive message that can be set. Yeah? So the only way in which you can do that is by rejecting the system. And the ideal way to do that is in an election to boycott, to have the Tamil nation as a whole to completely turn away and say that we are not part of this. Now, unfortunately, that process has a proviso because we at the same time must ensure that when we boycott, we do not, when we reject the system, we do not do harm to ourselves. Where, for example, Tamil the constituency does not become disenfranchised, where our voice is usurped by forces completely opposite, winning or somehow managing to show that they are in fact elected representatives. We had this problem in 1994 when the Tamil people chose to boycott the elections. By and large, only a handful of people went and voted, and it was only the EPDP that contested in Jaffna. All the seats went to the EPDP, and for 6 years, even though there was clearly no mandate at all, the government, along with the EPDP stooges, were able to create quite a bit of tension. So, mindful of the fact that when we choose to show or question the legitimacy of the state, because the state rejects us at every turn and has been acting to destroy our very existence, but at the same time not harming ourselves in an attempt to bring out that message. The Tamil candidate does the complete opposite, because even though you say that you stand for these aspirations, you, by the mere fact of contesting an election that actually has nothing to do with us, that has nothing to offer us, we are legitimizing that state structure. So it is for that reason that we strongly believe that the Tamil candidacy is in apart from the very completely discredited bunch of people who are promoting it, who are committed to the unitary state, who are committed to the 13th Amendment, which the Tamils have rejected since its very inception. Apart from that, by voting for the Tamil candidate, we are also legitimizing the state. We are also saying that this is not a question of lack of legitimacy vis-a-vis the Sri Lankan state and the Tamils, but we are all within that, but there has to be some small minor changes. So it's not really an ethnic conflict. It is not a question of the Tamil nation in conflict with the Sri Lankan state, because we are at cross purposes. Our intentions are at loggerheads. That is not the message that will come when you field a candidate. On the contrary, it is, it's a bit of a small little power sharing problem that we can, that we have to somehow try and negotiate and find a solution. So I think the messages that come out of the boycott and the message that comes out for voting for a Tamil candidate are fundamentally with regards to the legitimacy of the state, or rather the lack of legitimacy of the state, at cross purposes. Yeah, the Sri Lankan police's action of harassing, intimidating, arresting, filing cases against our organization and our members for trying to carry out a campaign calling for a boycott, I think is very clear. Like my answer to the earlier question with regards to the fundamental differences between the Tamil candidate and the boycott, the Sri Lankan police will have no problems at all with regards to Tamil candidate, because the legitimacy of the state is not being called into question, whereas the boycott is, and it's a rejection of the system. And it is precisely that dynamic, and also in their minds possibly the boycott, the last time the boycott was extremely successful was in 2005 when the LTT was also around, and when the LTT also called for it. So being mindful of the fact that boycott succeeding means that the Tamils successfully call into question the legitimacy of the state, and also the whole false propaganda of around the 2005, where the LTT was intimidated the Tamil people. They forcefully refused to allow the Tamil people to vote, and all of that falsehood will get exposed. So the whole narrative of the singular Buddhist nationalist project, in its anti-LTTness and in its anti-Tamilness, falls flat on its face. So clearly they don't want it to succeed. So what are they doing? Contrary to the law, which allows the right for the people to refuse to vote, they are trying to project this image that calling for a boycott is illegal and intimidate the ordinary voters. Intimidating our organization and its members is one thing, but more importantly, they want to intimidate the voter and the ordinary Tamil people into thinking that if they don't vote, that they will fall into trouble. And in fact, there is a campaign that is going on where the common Tamil candidate himself and his supporters are in fact saying that. So they are working hand in glove with the Sri Lankan state apparatus to intimidate the Tamil people into voting, in lying and saying that if they don't vote, that it will have serious consequences with regards to their jobs, if they are government servants, and so on and so forth. So to create the image that this is an illegal position to take, and to frighten the people into in fact going and voting and taking part in the process and legitimizing the process, the police are going out of their way to take action against the boycott campaign. I think that in itself will make it quite obvious how important it is for the Sri Lankan state that this Tamil candidate in some way gets the votes, and how aligned the interests of the Tamil candidates contesting and the Sri Lankan state's question on legitimacy is aligned. Well, how one would assess the boycott campaign and whether it succeeded or not, I mean, clearly has to do with the percentage of the voting. I don't think there is any other way in which you can assess it. It will be best assessed obviously in a place like in the north, particularly in a place like Jaffna or in the Krimchi district, where by and large you have mostly Tamil speaking people, than in the east where you have state-aided colonization that brought in a significant Sinhala population. But our view is that, I mean, if you look at the last elections, presidential elections, the general voting percentage has been around 80% in the northeast and in the north as well. So despite the fact that the Tamils called for a boycott, or the TNPF called for a boycott in the previous elections also, that has been in fact the voting percentage. So any movement from that position of 80% in the form of a drop will be a sort of an indication of the boycott campaign having made inroads. As to what would it take for the Tamil boycott campaign to consider it a success, I would say at the very least the voting percentage must drop below 50%. But as far as we are concerned, the Tamil candidate being called to stand for Tamil nationalist positions when in fact their position is to the complete contrary, which is their willingness to accept the 13th Amendment, which is completely inimical to Tamil aspirations. That these actors have been forced to take up this position in itself, I think, is a clear indication that the boycott campaign would have gained great amount of legitimacy at these elections, because actually the Tamil people on their own, quite apart from the TNPF going and wanting to campaign, had come to that position, and it is that desperation to somehow make sure that the TNPF's position does not gain legitimacy, and also this fear that the 2005 LTT's position also will be given legitimacy at a time when there is no LTT and the Tamil people on their own accord choosing to boycott. I think is the sort of desperation that drove these actors who have been completely unfaithful to the Tamil nationalist project and who have in fact at every turn acted to compromise the Tamil nationalist project from coming forward and pretending that they are for the project. But even so, a vote for them can be seen as part and parcel of a boycott, or being more or less aligned with a rejection of the present Sri Lankan state structure, because that is what they are saying in words when they go and in fact campaign. So our view is that the ideal situation would be if the voting percentage drops to below at least 50%, and that is what we believe we want to achieve, and that is what we'll be that is what we'll be campaigning for.